Underwater residents, or different kinds of litter washed ashore, are a common picture even for the clearest shore. However, waters really surprise us sometimes. In this episode, you'll see findings on the beach that struck everybody. Before we move on to the main findings on the beach, I suggest that we take a look at two special shots that I found on the web. They're both surprising and incredible. The first one shows a giant tree that was washed ashore in the USA. This photo is interesting for the fact that there's no forest or something like this near the area where the tree was discovered. For this matter, there are no such huge trees in neighboring settlements. Where could it have appeared from? It didn't grow underground, right? It's this monster that grew underwater. Nobody commented on where exactly it was found, what it was like, and what was decided to do with it next. However, something hints to me that if a similar creature had been real, it would have been immediately passed to a research center, and any information related to its study would have been classified. This can be either an alien monster or some terrible species that's unknown to science. Alright, let us leave that abnormal giant to scientists and take a look at a more real creature found on the coast of Japan. As you can notice, it was a crab of incredible size. Relying on eyewitnesses, the creature was washed ashore. People had nothing to do with this. Everything was in order with the crab. The rescue service, dealing with the animals, came to the scene and took it along. Evidently, it's incredibly interesting for the whole scientific community because of its dimensions, though it's quite probable that we're misled. The thing is that there have been no official comments on the subject. In its turn, this can say that the crab was false. What do you think about it? Write in the comments. You know, it would have been better if all similar discoveries had been left unconfirmed. The thing is that when you understand that one creature or another really lives on our Earth at the moment, you start to feel unwell. This interesting worm serves as an ideal evidence to my words. Its photo was published by the workers of the National Park in North Carolina. Relying on people's words, they found this creature somewhere on the beach. Initially, they took it for an inanimate object. However, when it moved, everybody was frightened. It remains to hope that this armor just stuck to the worm, whereas it was quite an ordinary one. No, this was a failure. The armor was deadly connected to the creature, and possibly was a part of its body. Except what it was needed for, which way was used to form it, and what it consisted of, nobody learned. It was the only more or less reasonable proposition that it was a mutant in front of people. Someone took an ordinary worm and corrected its appearance by changing indicators on the genetic level. The unsatisfactory result was thrown into the water, but the creature adapted and managed to survive. You wouldn't say this about creatures from our next story. They had some difficulties with survival. What else could explain the fact that those were thousands of fishes washed ashore in Mexico? Some consider this a paradise for fishermen, whereas others call this a natural catastrophe. After all, they're both right in part. On the one hand, this incident can be indicative that those people were lucky. Fish were hunting, and because of some failure, they lost their way and found themselves in shallow waters with no chances of finding the way out. Except, how do you imagine this picture? No problem if it's just one or two fish that swam there, but thousands of them did. Of course, it's also the fact that the brethren tried to help the rest of them, but this was not very likely. Nobody had noticed such social behavior between these creatures. This is where a second theory is put forward for discussion. According to this theory, this is nothing else but a sinister omen, the sign proving that the advanced race exists. In addition, its representatives try to warn us something. I don't know how possible it is, but this sounds rather frightening. On the other hand, though, we can take this bad omen for anything possible. Even such a huge squid can be considered a premonition of something awful. The 13-foot-long giant was washed ashore in South Africa, and people who found themselves in the vicinity couldn't believe their eyes. An incredibly rare deep-water squid was endowed with a rather big mouth, looking like a beak as well as surprising tentacles. Supposedly, the creature weighed about 440 pounds. People on the beach seemed that they became eyewitnesses of a record specimen, the largest of all that can only exist. In reality, it was not the case. Yes, the squid was really titanic. Its deep-water brethren, if scientists are to be believed, can grow even 33 feet long. These are real krakens. After seeing one of them, it's not difficult to believe in mysticism. Let us come back to our discovery. As soon as people noticed this creature on the shore, they informed sea biologists about taking the body of the squid along. Now they're kept in the museum and actively studied. To enjoy our next finding, we'll transfer ourselves to a surprising beach in New Zealand. After all, it's exactly where the ocean left the skeleton of the most controversial and unusual creatures in the world in 2018. The body of the monster was found by a local resident who took it for an alien first. The creature had especially thin legs, a mouth full of sharp teeth, as well as fanged wings. Yeah, you didn't mishear, it had serrations even on its wings. However, curiosity gained the upper hand, and the resident of New Zealand still decided to take the creature along. She took several pictures of it from home and posted them on the web, with biologists getting in touch with her. You would never guess who that was, according to what scientists thought. They proposed, just think of it, it was a ray. Nobody explained where it had sharp wings from and why it had such a strange appearance. I don't know. For sure, this was one of the few cases when I don't share the positions of professionals. What do you think it could have been? You know, I look at findings and understand that there are many undiscovered and unstudied creatures that could simply overturn all the history of medicine upside down. For example, this thing. An Australian man took a video of an alien resembling a slug. At the moment of filming, it lay on the ground and didn't move. The intuition of the person hinted to him that it could have been some embryo, whereas scientists who paid attention to the photo on the web didn't share this point of view. Relying on their words, they had never seen anything similar before, so it could have been an adult specimen. The proboscis on the right side must have been used to suck small food into. It's a pity that the author of the clip didn't immediately tell about the finding as soon as he found it. Maybe they would manage to save the object and even study it. This finding was made in England. The local resident named Will Reed was fishing and quite accidentally noticed several strange cubes. They were made from lead and drawn by unknown symbols. This suggests that the objects had a religious destination. With the help of the intercept survey on the internet, she managed to find out that these symbols had Hindi origin. Possibly the cubes were brought from India to England. However, they were thrown away because of their insufficient practical use. Speaking of that, there's the main riddle. After all, nobody managed to solve the issue of their destination. On the one hand, symbols are repeated, resembling Sudoku. In this case, each column, line, and diagonal give the united meaning. This suggests that these cubes are some ancient tools used to carry out rites. By the way, together with these cubes, people found this strange coin. It's more likely that the creature we can see on it was one of the rites were conducted for. In any case, if you have another theory on the subject of these cubes, share it under the video. If we touched upon the subject of something ancient, why not look at such a curious discovery? This fish, or to be more precise, its remains, were washed ashore in New Jersey. People were wondering for a long time and couldn't understand what it was. On the one hand, it was a mere fish. The shape of its body and its tail told about this. On the other hand, it didn't look like any of the modern underwater creatures. If it had turned out to be ancient, it would have also looked differently. At least its skin and bones that would have been left from it. It's not only prehistoric fish that can make scientists alarmed and worried. For example, in the end of 2023, a similar underwater monster was washed ashore. As you can notice, it had clearly noticeable skin, eyes, and full teeth. This means that the fish has died quite recently. People who have a good knowledge of the fauna would think that it's delirium and falsification. Say there are no such frightening creatures in the world. In fact, for better or worse, it's not the case. It turned out that it's deep-sea anglerfish that found itself on the shore. It's such a dreadful fish that inhabits a depth of a mile to 2 miles. It's quite simple to distinguish them from other sea dwellers. All the anglerfish have a spherical body, and the main, I would say vitally important tool, the rod. I'll tell you about them a little bit later, what they need it for. For now, let us come back to the general description of these creatures. So we found out about the depth. Concerning their dimensions, females and males of the deep-sea anglerfish are literally incomparable. While males can grow up to 2 inches, females can grow up to 3.5 feet. This way, the specimen washed ashore was a female. The giant maw of this deep-sea monster was studded with serrated teeth. Together with dreadful outgrowths all over the body, all this turns into a frightening picture. It's really creepy that this is the main tool of our monster fish. It's Elysium, the first ray of the spinal fin, or just a rod. This tool turned into a real magic bullet. As they live at a great depth where the sun rays don't reach, the presence of a torch is as good as gold. On the tip of Elysium, a special skin node is located. This thing is full of specific microorganisms that can start shining when the blood rushes. Any other fish that notices light at a great depth will, by any measures, go to research it. As a result, the victim ends up in the clutches of its death. As I've already mentioned, the magic bullet starts to illuminate when blood rushes to the rod. This means that our anglerfish can control this. In one mood, it goes hunting, whereas in the other, it blends in with the shadow and finally disappears from the radars of other fish. Seemingly, Mother Nature likes everything that's illuminated, to such an extent that it added its effect even to stones. It would have been another matter if that had just been for anglerfish. I can understand them. But what do inanimate objects need it for? Somewhere on the lake shore in North America, people have found similar wonderstones. As well as in some fairy tale, the light trickled down outside, literally from nowhere. Truth be told, you had to direct stones at the ultraviolet light. But still, people that discovered this natural wonder quickly oriented themselves, started to search for them, and sell them on the internet. Scientists who were interested in this unusual finding didn't linger. They bought a couple of such stones and brought them for research. It turned out that tourists discovered a new kind of minerals. For now, it's not known what it is, how illumination occurs, or what it can be needed for. If you have your own theories on the subject, write them in the comments. A British family walked along the beach and just had a good time when suddenly something strange and unusual caught their eyes that was stuck to the tree. The trunk was washed ashore, whereas it was studded with some strange creatures. You got the impression that those were tiny hands of aliens or just an unknown to science species. But as it turned out, everything was much simpler. It's sea ducks that were in front of people. Those were no aliens, but are rare creatures. It's considered that those are some of the most expensive sea products in the whole world. I hope people learned this in time and managed to gather 4.5 or 6.5 pounds of this delicacy several days ahead. Do you remember that today we looked at the deep-sea anglerfish? So many found its maw terrible. And now if you think that nature isn't capable of something more, just look at this unnatural fish that was caught in Murmansk. Firstly, sharp teeth were rather big. Secondly, they were even located in the palate. I have no idea what this creature needs such well-elaborated and rich mouth parts for. However, it didn't help it with survival. Otherwise, the fish would have not gotten hooked. By the way, this is an excellent example. However strong you may be, the main thing is your brain and actions that you take. How would you react if you'd seen a similar giant egg while walking along the beach? I would also not have known what to do with it, and I would have walked away from it. Who knows? However, courageous people from Japan turned out to be more curious. They did not only approach the object, but also managed to take a video of it as well as pass it to the scientists. All the possible tests that were carried out showed that it's a really huge egg. Unfortunately, nobody hatched from it and would never do. Meanwhile, it could have been some hybrid. I don't know, but for some reason it seems to me that this egg was unreal. Yes, we've received some comments from scientists. However, nobody knows who gave them. These people were not found. quite possible that it was no hybrid that changed science, but a simple blank created to attract attention. Now I suggest that you look at the most incredible and surprising animals found in all of the Amazon River. Jaguar thief. Even if that monster is someone's fantasy, life for hunters and fishermen in the Amazon is very hard anyway. You don't believe it? Then just take a look at this footage. It shows an adult fisherman sitting in his boat doing something, and a jaguar comes up to him out of nowhere and steals the fish. The thief didn't care how much time and effort the man spent to get it, it just walked up and took it. The only good thing is that the fisherman still had the fish. It's better to lose one than to get into a fight with a real jaguar. By the way, I'm sure that for many people it's now a surprise that jaguars live near the Amazon River, but lately this is not something strange and unusual at all. Jaguars from flooded forests move into the crowns of trees and live here for 3 to 4 months, preying on sloths and monkeys. Brazilian scientists came to this conclusion after watching the lives of 9 of these big cats. Judging by the fact that the Amazonian jaguars were in great physical shape all year long, they had enough food. The only ones that seem to be able to compete with them are giant otters. You might think they're the cutest animals in the world. They're so smooth, they have funny faces, they're probably also very affectionate, right? Well, don't go and check that out because giant otters are actually a real nightmare in the flesh. Even big jaguars can't deal with a group of giant otters. It's all because, unlike its distant relative, the European otter, the giant otter is active during the daytime and is not very fearful. It's also huge and eats literally everything in its path. In a day, this creature is happy to consume food up to 15% of its own weight. The otter attacks medium-sized or small prey alone. If we're talking about a big enemy, then the otters will need the help of their congeners. Their strength and impudence allow them to hunt even caimans and, as you understand, jaguars. By the way, unlike most animals, the mother is the main hunter in the otter family. It's the female that chooses which creature and in what group they'll attack. The father keeps an eye on the territory and protects it from invaders. And here's another interesting feature of otters' family life. Only the eldest parents have the right to mate. All other members of the group are like their older and younger babies. The congeners maintain a warm relationship, they comb each other's fur, communicate with the help of various sounds, and just have a great time. If you now think that only giant otters are to be feared in the Amazon region, you're wrong. This is a place where a member of any family can be horrible, dangerous, and hungry. And Amazonian giant centipedes are no exception in this case. The centipede is not only horrible in terms of appearance, but also insanely dangerous in its essence. Amazonian giant centipedes often attack birds, lizards, mice, and toads, and the most venomous among them are the females. Even if they bite a creature as large as a human, they can knock them down. The venom of the Amazonian giant centipede retains its striking properties well in the cold, but it's quickly destroyed by heat. Therefore, it's advised to wipe the bitten area with ethyl alcohol, ether, or strong alkali. However, it's unlikely that ordinary tourists will have all this at the hand right in the Amazon, right? Because of this, such encounters often end sadly. It's not for nothing that the centipede is called giant. It's very dangerous, and along with this, reaches more than 16 inches in length. All its creepy body consists of 23 segments of copper red color, each with a pair of legs. One pair of legs turned into maxillopedes with claws connected to venomous glands, and the hind pairs turned into special dragging large feet, which help the animal to cling to clods of soil in earthen passages. Thus, this creature clings to the enemy with its front legs, injects venom into the opponent, and then slowly but surely begins to tear off parts of it and push them into its mouth. In general, this creature loves the rules of good nutrition. It eats slowly and for a long time, taking breaks between meals. Common Suriname toad. In general, this creature does resemble a toad, but I'd rather call it some kind of strange alien experimentation. It's just too weird and strange. Why would I think that? Well, to begin with, the common Suriname toad has a critical shortage of normal body parts. Microscopic eyes, no normal nostrils, ears but no eardrums. In the mouth, it's not even a hint of a tongue and teeth. They can't croak. The skin is devoid of disinfectant peptides like most frogs. Usually, when a creature lacks something, it excels at something else, some of you may think. Spoiler alert, the common Suriname toad didn't get anything special in return. They kinda rolled over the frog, made the throat dimensionless, drilled a bunch of holes in its back, and put a fringe on its fingertips. Despite all this, it lives well. It's just some eighth wonder of the world. This creature is completely inept at catching prey, the way its distant relatives do, so it chose a different way. The animal sinks to the bottom of a sluggish river. Under these conditions, its brown-gray skin blends in perfectly with the bottom trash. After that, the toad just lies there. No, it doesn't sleep. It makes an ambush skillfully and professionally. If the prey swims close enough, the common Suriname toad opens its mouth and sharply expands its throat, sucking up the enemy as if it were a vacuum cleaner. Also, if the enemy is nimble, it can grab it with its strange legs, which will help it keep the enemy in one place. This creature usually reaches 5 inches in length. The maximum size reached up to 8 inches. There's actually a lot of confidence and aspiration hidden in this small body, which is manifested in their mating dance. By the way, do you know what its peculiarity is? The female attaches the eggs to its back, and the male helps it tamp them. In this way, the eggs are evenly distributed in cells throughout the female's back, and it proudly carries up to 144 babies. Bullet ant. The bullet ant is the very little creature, an encounter with which you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. You're unlikely to crush it like classic ants on the beach or somewhere in the countryside, at least because it won't get under your feet so easily. I'm sure you didn't know this, but there are even some ancient tribal rituals associated with the bullet ant. They mean giving a young boy an opportunity to encounter the ant face to face. Thus, the boy will experience his first serious pain and will be considered an adult member of the family. Somebody may think, well, an ant bites you, what's so terrible about it? Well, the sting of the bullet ant is about 30 times more painful than the sting of a wasp, and this hell lasts for a whole day. It's not so easy to encounter these ants on the street, even if you find yourself in their native habitat, because they build themselves underground nests with many entrances and exits, where they spend most of their time. In one family, there are usually about 2,000 individuals, although there are more. Each of them, on average, reaches 0.7 to 0.9 inches in length. The good news is they don't feel any particular anger towards us humans, but if someone crosses them, they will hiss, then release an unpleasant gas, and only then attack. In general, there will be plenty of chances and time to change your mind and retreat. Harpy eagle. What a wild life can be without birds, right? This one, for example, is called the harpy eagle, and it has nothing to do with mythical stories. It's a bird of the hawk's family, the only species of its genus. Some consider it to be the largest eagle in the world in terms of weight, and indeed the harpy eagle's size is staggering. The body length of this eagle is from 35 to 43 inches. The wingspan's about 6.5 feet. Yes, this is less than that of other eagles of similar size, but there is an explainer for this. The South American harpy eagle hunts in dense forests, where it has to maneuver between trees and dense foliage when attacking its prey, so too large wings would only hinder it. And in general, the strength is not in them, but in the lightning speed combined with amazing talents, reaching 5 inches in length. And now, if you add all these factors together and imagine that the harpy eagle has its eye on someone, well, I wouldn't want to be in the poor guy's shoes. I don't think they'd have much of a chance for survival. Have you ever seen places where giraffes are bred? Now I'll show you the rarest animals that are used on a farm. Bears are predatory animals that are divided into many species and instill fear not only in people but also in animals. No one wants to encounter these big guys with amazing grip strength and incredible speed. Who would have thought that someone would have these animals on their farm? The landowner's name is Alexander. He came to this place more than 6 years ago and literally built a beautiful farm from scratch. Friends decided to please the man even more and gave him Misha when he was only 3 months old. As Alexander says himself, the bear's former owners had bought him in Irkutsk for resale, but they couldn't sell him. The bear only broke the whole balcony and caused a lot of other trouble. The new owners tried to caress Misha as best they could, but it's still impossible to make him completely tame. No matter how you look at it, this is a strong and wild predatory animal. Nevertheless, the bear's been doing very well on this farm lately, greeting guests with pleasure and eating bananas and cookies. The 1-year-old bear was fed with cottage cheese, meat, sprat, and cow's milk. Soon after, so the bear would not be lonely, they brought a companion, Glasha the bear. This lady performed at the opening of Main Universal Store in Moscow, but then she became violent and she was brought here. If you also would like to get a domestic bear, hit the like button and also write how you'd like to use it on the farm, because personally, I just have no ideas. Biofarm Leeches. This farm is located in the British city of Swansea. Of course, a leech farm is not quite the farm we're all used to seeing, but that only makes it more interesting as far as I'm concerned. The idea of the farm is to grow leeches and send them to different parts of the world for medical purposes. Yeah, no matter how medicine evolves, no matter what new things are invented, leechcraft is still considered more than relevant. This is evidenced by the company's revenue, which amounts to more than £1 million sterling a year. By the way, do you know that medical leeches were first used for medicinal purposes back in the 17th century? But do not hurry to think that almost all leeches will do. Otherwise, you'll find some on the street and decide to try it. In fact, only one of the more than 400 species of leeches is suitable for this purpose. Moreover, each leech is used for the procedure only once, after which it's killed. Cricket Farm. Another place that, without a single doubt, can be considered unique in its own way. This farm is located in the state of Georgia. The familiar insects are great bait for fishing, so the benefits of such a farm are obvious to avid fishermen. However, they also like to raise other types of bait like various worms. Interestingly enough, Armstrong Farm is always open for visitors. It works not only to make money but also to educate people. The farm has been in existence for a long time and is constantly thriving. One of the main innovations is a special lighting system which makes artificial light as similar to natural light as possible. But some insects on the farm live and breed in complete darkness. Giraffe Farm. That happens too. Some people actually breed giraffes. This farm is an ecologically clean and officially functioning reserve. Well, on the outside, it looks a bit like a classic zoo. Although it's full of different animals, it was originally set up just for the giraffes. However, for me personally, it's still a mystery why people would create this place. After all, giraffes are not much use. Strangely enough, this question still has an answer. Giraffes are used for research. Also, the farm cooperates with large health centers because people long ago found out that communication with animals helps to feel better. We've done all sorts of unusual animals on farms, but now let's take a look at something epic. Get ready to see some truly gigantic animals that will be hard to believe. A horse weighing more than a ton, a 6.5-foot tall cow, and a giant rabbit are further in this episode. Horses are amazing creatures that fascinate at first sight with their cuteness and loyalty. And if for you horses are animals that are all the same, almost indistinguishable from one another, then I will now dispel this misconception. This horse's name is Big Jake, and since his birth, he's surprised people. At the very least, if horses usually weigh 110 pounds at birth, this one weighed 240. The creature belonged to the Belgian draft breed, which was bred at the end of the 19th century. The horses are a priori muscular and large, but still Big Jake was even tougher. In 2010, the experts of the Guinness Book of World Records measured Big Jake and recognized him as the tallest living horse in history at that time. His height was an incredible 6.8 feet. The horse weighed 2,498 pounds. The Gilberts, that was the name of Jake's owners, raised him on their farm and kept the place open so that anyone could stop by and see the creature resting in his stall in person. Our next guest's name was Blossom. It was the name of a giant cow who was born and raised on a farm in Illinois, USA. This was another creature from the farm in this episode that was able to get into the Guinness Book of World Records because of its size. As a calf, this cow was the size of an adult, but when she grew up, she was almost 6.5 feet tall. Such an abnormal growth attracted a lot of people's eyes, who were eager to look at the animal and take a picture. Strange as it may seem, the cow liked everything and calmly tolerated such excessive attention in her address. Moreover, Blossom, on the contrary, enjoyed it and was pleased with what was happening. The cow passed away because of a leg injury when she was 13 years old. Considering the average lifespan of cows, Blossom was not yet an old lady and could have lived at least as long. Darius. That's the name of the amazing creature I'm going to talk about. Yes, as you've already realized, I'm talking about a rabbit, but not an ordinary rabbit, but a rabbit of the German giant breed. This creature fully corresponds to the name of the breed and stands out for its size. Its body length is 4.2 feet. Of course, this value was recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records, and this is the third of our 3 guests in this episode who got there. For Annette Edwards, the owner of Darius, the giant was the 4th pet to make it into the Guinness Book of World Records. He took over the title of the longest rabbit from his mother. The breeder assumes that Darius's record can be broken by his children. Unfortunately, the whereabouts of Darius is currently unknown. The rabbit disappeared from the farm last year. He was kidnapped by intruders. We can only hope that Darius will return to Annette someday, though the chances are slim. Still, I suggest that we not lose hope and believe that the record-breaking Darius will be reunited with his owner. But for now, let's leave that story behind and move on to the final part of the episode, in which I'll show you some mutant animals raised on farms. A pig with a human face. By the way, I forgot to warn you, if anyone's eating now, postpone your meal for a while, or the most sensitive may have a bad appetite. This unusual piglet with a human face was born somewhere in southeastern China. Curiously enough, a total of 19 piglets were born at one time, and only one, this one here, turned out to have a deformed face. The mother of the piglet refused to feed the baby, and after a while it died. Nevertheless, during this time the piglet managed to shock literally all the people in the village. As stated later, this animal also suffered from cyclopia. It remains unknown how the piglet caught this unfortunate disease. Two-headed calf. This is not a rare occurrence, but still the appearance of a mutated animal in any village makes the villagers surprised and wary of what's happening. That's exactly what happened in this case, because the calf not only had 2 fused heads, but 3 eyes at once. Despite the deformity, the owners of the farm didn't think of giving up caring for it. They continued to raise the calf and feed it by hand. You know, even though it's considered a mutant on paper, I think the calf is cute and charming enough. Wouldn't you agree? Everyone thinks that fish are not very dangerous. Now I'll show you some really dangerous river fish. Goliath tigerfish. One of the most unusual freshwater fish. A real river monster, the mere sight of which gives many people chills. The scientific name of the fish, Goliath, in Latin means giant water dog. The name alone doesn't bode well. Nevertheless, for some reason, people try to catch this creature from shallow rivers or bodies of water in Africa. Due to its powerful physique, the Goliath tigerfish can swim even against the current, making it a real challenge for the best fishermen to catch it. This tigerfish makes such commotion because it devours literally everything it comes across. Small fish are eaten by the monster just like this in one sitting. With bigger prey, it'll have to tinker a little and only then eat it. But if you think people are safe because they don't swim underwater, you're dead wrong. Somehow this fish ate over 300 birds in 2 weeks. Researchers watched it and came to that conclusion. What else they found out is that even a crocodile would not become a nuisance to the Goliath tigerfish. When hungry, the fish can attack it. Believe me, if necessary, the Goliath tigerfish would even devour a human in just a minute. The stamina of the Goliath tigerfish also adds fuel to the fire. If the fish has trouble breathing underwater, it can inhale oxygen from the surface. The main paradox is that while it devours everything in sight, humans can't eat it. It's simply not edible. So the desperate fishermen who catches them do so only to satisfy their own egos, but nothing more. Red-bellied piranha. It sounds like there are many dangerous piranhas in the world, but the red-bellied piranha is definitely not one of them. It's exactly the opposite. All the notoriety of these fish came from red-bellied piranhas. Basically, their danger lies in the presence of a large mouth with protruding, sharp teeth. They're very tightly closed, so the piranhas do not bite the food but literally cut it like a razor. Usually, the jaws of piranhas are compared to well-sharpened scissors. The second important feature of these fish is their accurate, literally perfect teamwork. Thanks to it, during the attacks, these fish take turns inflicting painful bites which together do not allow the prey to move or resist. Because of these tactics, piranhas only need a few minutes to get to their prey's bones. But don't think that red-bellied piranhas eat only large representatives of fauna. Due to the fact that there are not so many large inhabitants in the murky waters of the Amazon River, these predatory fish usually feed on carrion. Just as wolves can be called the sanitarians of the forest, so piranhas can rightly be called the sanitarians of the Amazon. They timely clean the water from the dead bodies that have fallen into it so that they don't emit poisonous substances. However, this doesn't mean that the fish have no desire to eat something larger, something alive. Just a few drops of blood immediately trigger the piranha's phenomenal sense of smell, and they move out to hunt. That's all, guys. Which river monster struck you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.